Good afternoon. This is Robert Morales from Inside Productions, live here in Phoenix, Arizona. RCO Network, RCO Network, good people, better business, discovering the best of you. Today, for the next hour, we're going to be having a workshop series. Today's topic is cybersecurity. We'll be taking questions in the chat box if you want to go ahead and type those in, and your comments, go ahead and put them in. We'll answer them as we go in the broadcast. But if you are watching us here live on YouTube, go ahead and like us, hit that little like button because we love the loves that you kind of give us out here. Head over to our Facebook and follow us at rconetwork.com. Also find us on Instagram, LinkedIn. But for more information, head over to rconetwork.com for more about marketing your business and sponsorships during this broadcast. That was a horrible intro, but you're not here for me, so that's the best part about these shows. Is the workshop series is the part where I get to break away and step back and allow our special guest to come on and give his presentation. And so for the next hour, like I said, I'd say for the next 30 minutes, we're going to be learning a little bit more about cybersecurity, and then be taking a small interim question and answer section, about 15 minutes. So if you guys have questions, you can go and ask our guest. So with no further ado, and I know you guys hate hearing me all day long, he is an information technology professional with 25 years of experience, primarily in the IT security market. Currently, he holds multiple certifications in Cisco, EMC, VMware, and other industry leaders. Currently, he works at Sharp Business Systems, providing the best in security and IT offerings. Part of his role is helping companies develop and implement security strategies based around the understanding that often employees pose the biggest risk. So with no further ado, please welcome our guest speaker, Tony Roessler. Like that. You like that intro, Tony?
I like that. I need to have that loop tape follow me around. You better make it my ringtone and call me consistently. Yeah. So I appreciate it, Robert, and I want to thank everybody for attending. As to Robert's point, I've got 25 years industry experience, and over the last 5 years, we've seen a greater, more prevalent, trend in our industry as far as IT security and more appropriately breaches. So today, if you have any questions, please just type them in the chat. I'm going to respect everybody's time and keep this as brief as possible. It's not a 500 PowerPoint slideshow, but I did want to acknowledge some things that are going on that we're seeing, not only here domestically, but also on an international level, and also give you some tools and some tips to help prevent you guys from becoming the next victim. Nobody wants to be the next leader in the paper and see that their company got breached. So if you have any questions, again, type them in the chat. Sean, myself, or Hector will be more than happy to answer them for you. And right now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if somebody can give a nod and let me know when you can see it. And it should be up. So over 70% of organizations have been compromised in the last year due to a cybersecurity attack, threat, whether it be ransomware or whether it be something that has popped up in the past. Well, one of our big roles and what we really look to do is stop that, help you guys from becoming the next victim. And we've seen this across all industries dealing with IT. As you'll notice, there's a lot more certifications, a lot more classes, a lot more specialties built around cybersecurity in particular. And if somebody asked me offline, I know that's a statistic that you can pull up from the paper, I'd almost guarantee that number is closer to about 90% of companies. The issue with cybersecurity is if somebody hacks into your network, if somebody does a data breach, you don't necessarily know it right away. The average time that somebody spends on your network before they demand any kind of ransomware, before they trigger an event, is about 60 days. So think about that. There's somebody on your network for about 60 days who's mining your data, who's watching your movements, who's pivoting from one computer to another, and basically gradually taking over that network. Some good examples of that is we see a lot of breaches right around the 4th of July holiday, which is coming up, right around Memorial Day, because it gives them that extra day to actually release something into your network where somebody might or might not have noticed. So I went ahead and pulled up a screen here of functions that are likely to be affected by a security breach. So you got operations, you got finances, brand reputation. If you think about some of the big box retailers that have been hacked over the last 4 or 5 years, those are still phenomenal, and those are still on people's minds. I'll give you a personal example. My mom still doesn't shop at Target, even though that was one of their third parties that allowed that breach to happen. My mom still thinks anytime she goes to Target that they're going to steal her credit card numbers. So if you think about that, and that customer base that actually has been affected by that, it is something that goes beyond just the financial repercussions or the loss of productivity. So some notable breaches that have happened in the past decade. Think about Blue Cross Blue Shield, state of South Carolina, Target, Home Depot, Chick-fil-A, U.S. Postal Service. And then we've got interesting ones like Sony Pictures. So if you think about Sony Pictures, again, not all these are financials. If anybody remembers the movie that they were going to release that portrayed the North Korean leader in a bad light, that thing went straight to DVD. And a lot of that was nationals from North Korea hacked into Sony Pictures. And the threat was they were going to release the salary differences between actors and actresses and different demographics over the last decade. So if anybody remembers, that didn't go to the theaters, it went straight to video. So what are the primary causes of data breaches? It's interesting. So a lost or stolen computer. So if you think about it, I've had an incident here within the last 6 months where a doctor at a high-end hospital system actually had his laptop with his passwords to Epic and everything written on it in his car. His car was actually stolen. He reported the car stolen, and it slipped his mind that I have a laptop with access to my healthcare system that basically if somebody turns it on, they can log in from any network and see exactly what I needed to do. So those are types of things. But also if you look at it, malicious insider and intentional non-malicious employee action. So a lot of times, in particular, when people leave companies, they're also spreading these viruses. Employee mistakes account for just as much as a malicious act in this. So a user who might believe that even though you're sitting down the hall from them and you're stuck in Europe and might need money wire transferred to them, that also counts for a data breach. Big one that's happened lately is we get this call about once a week where somebody gets an email and it looks like it's from the CFO or another top level official at a company, and it's asking them wire transfer gift cards from an online retailer and mail them out to a customer base or to a particular PO box in California. And it's amazing, even though we educate and even though we think about this, emails taught us to get things in and out of our email box as fast as possible. The main goal of IT and the main goal of a computer network is to allow your employees and yourselves to, disseminate that information. So a lot of times with emails, we get into the habit, pops into our inbox, let's respond, let's do the action that it takes, let's get it out of our inbox. A lot of times we don't take that extra common sense step to realize that, hey, there's no reason for anybody in our company to ask for $8,000 worth of Starbucks cards. So hackers. So who are the hackers? Let's go through, let's kind of describe who these hackers are, just so you get a better understanding of who might be actually targeting our network. So the first one I want to talk to you about is what we call a white hat hacker. So this is somebody, another term for it is an ethical hacker. This is somebody you would pay, like a Sharp, like a third party, to come in and basically audit your network. They're looking for places in your network to do penetration tests, to see if there's any glaring holes in your network, and they will actually help you fix that and remedy those problems. So we move into the next type of hacker is more or less a black hat hacker. So if you guys want to stereotype a lot, this is the person who's sitting in his mom's basement, just basically hacking into a network, doing things on social media, really just to get away with it. They want to brag about it on Facebook. They want to, cause you a little bit of discomfort, but they're not really looking for any kind of financial gain or any kind of shutdown of your business. They're more of a nuisance. Then you have that gray hat hacker who, just as the color denotes, it fits in between that white and black hat hacker, who's somebody who might stumble upon, a data vulnerability on your network. And what they're going to actually do is they might call you up on the phone and say, hey, look, by chance, and however you want to phrase that, I found this hole in your network. I'll tell you what the hole is, but I would like $50 or something to fix that hole. So now we're going to move more into a corporate level. So these are the people who are going to damage your network. And so from a security standpoint, somebody in my position, anybody or anything that degrades the network quality or slows down business is a security liability. It's a data breach. It's a hacker. So one of the things that I do want to cover is there is something called hacktivism. And these are people who hack into networks for political or motivated gain. So one example would be if Greenpeace was hacking into Japanese whaling ships or something along those lines, even though depending on where your morality lies and where your ethics are, you might view that on a political landscape as right, but still to a security person, that's still a hack. That's still a data breach. So hacktivism can be divided into two main categories. One, cyber terrorism. The other is freedom of information. So cyber terrorism, everybody remembers these guys. They would hack, they would breach things, basically to make a political statement. And depending on what the political statement was at that time, depending on who their target was. And then for freedom of information, everybody remembers this. Again, he hacked into databases or got data and then published that data. That data was confidential, and there was a reason, or political organizations felt there was a reason to keep that confidential. So that is a freedom of information hacker. So we're going to move more into the nation states. So as far as hackers are concerned, if you think about it, everybody's enveloped or envision that small nondescript building in a third world country that's hacking into the America or trying to hack into the United States. Well, it is a huge, misconception if you don't believe that the United States has those same nondescript buildings with tons of hackers in them trying to hack into other countries throughout the world. So it's a play back and forth, and there are some mandates out there that basically say, we understand you're trying to hack into us, you're trying to hack into, or we're trying to hack into you. We're not going to hold our citizens responsible for that. We're going to hold governments responsible for that. One of the main concerns that we run into is if you think about where we develop a lot of our R&D for our war machines, for our medical practices, a lot of that is in our university systems. So if you think about it, if you have a son or daughter who goes to MIT or somewhere like that, and they get a data breach or they get hacked because they're working on the next, solution to a virus or, the next robotics that's going to help the war machine fight better, their data could actually just be data mined because somebody's going to hack in on the nation state, just going to grab as much as they can and pull it back over and disseminate through it later. So from a hacking or from a security standpoint, that is a concern. So where we're seeing more and more, and this is what you're reading about in the news, this is, the SolarWinds breach, this is the whole Microsoft breach that happened here a couple of days ago. You're seeing organized crime. So if you think about it, a long time ago, there was a huge risk as far as getting shot at, getting arrested. You had to be geographically close to go rob a bank. That has all went away with the internet bringing people together. So you can have a group of Russian mobsters hack into a network here in the Americas, demand Bitcoin, demand ransomware, and actually bring it back. So actually hacking has surpassed $1 billion industry. And there's some countries where actually the hacking organization from organized crime is their number one gross national product. So if you think about that, it's very beneficial financially for somebody to target a network. So with all that being said, you can think about where you can spend IT money. You can spend IT money on firewalls. You can spend it on your network. You can spend it on the latest and greatest technologies, and all that's perfect. All that helps. But where are your biggest threats? So if anybody on the chat window wants to take a random guess, if you spend $1 million with Sharp, with Dell, with any of the big players out there, you still have one glaring hole. And this is something important to think about as you guys are bringing your workforce back into your environments. Your biggest threats are these guys. They're your employees. So they fall for different types of threats. We all do. There's spam, there's phishing, there's social engineering, and then there's more of the malicious, more high-end threats. But I'm just going to go through a few of these today. Just these are what we're seeing the most common. These are where your employees with some security training or some emphasis on, hey, you know, there really isn't a princess in Nigeria who needs your bank account number. Come on. There are those types of things that we're going to focus on. So first is spam. So if you think about spam, spam's been around ever since email in some form or another. You know, if you remember back in the 90s, people were getting arrested for being mass spammers, and it was just a nuisance. And then it developed more into these poorly written emails where somebody was asking you to, hey, send me money, or hey, can I have your bank account? The problem with spam, or the reason spam will never go away, in my opinion, is you can go online and you can buy a list, and these are, you know, in a real business purpose, these are used for marketing, but you can buy a list of about 10,000 names for $100, 10,000 verified email addresses for $100. So out of that 10,000, if I get one person to give me their credit card number, if I can get one person to click on a link, I've come out ahead. It's a very profitable business. If you think about it, if and most of your business owners or CEOs, if you think about it, if you could take $100 and all you needed out of a 10,000 customer pool or prospect pool, one person to respond, and you would make your money back tenfold, that's a great investment. It's not a ethical investment, and hopefully nobody gets any ideas to start a business like that, but you've got to think the financial rewards are there. And so what happened was, is from spam, we got a little bit more high end. We actually were going to incorporate some social engineering. We were going to go out to LinkedIn, for example, excuse me, and develop a little bit more of a targeted email campaign. So this is why we became, or this is how phishing envelopes. So we're going to go out to a company's website. We were going to see who the CEO was. We were going to see who the HR person was. And we were going to actually take that information and incorporate it into our email. So instead of us having that blanket spam emails we were sending, these were a little bit more targeted. They might say, hi, this, you know, dear employee, this is so-and-so, and sign it your CEO. Or, hey, can you give me your cell phone number? I'm in a meeting. And so when people saw that, they responded to it quick because there's a little bit more validity to it. They also, a lot of times in phishing attacks, they use a higher level official. And what this official does is somebody, if a CFO sends somebody in accounting an email, usually that person's role in accounting is to answer that CFO as fast as possible. So a lot of times information was getting taken that way. So here's an example. This is one from SunTrust. You know, hey, we've developed these security measures. We want you to click sign on and verify your account number. The one thing that we always talk about when we do employee awareness training, and it always surprises me, is your bank's never going to ask you for your bank account number. They already know it. Your healthcare provider is never going to ask you for your social. That's how they bill you. I can guarantee that's the one piece of information they have. don't fall for these scams. A good example is we were giving this speech about 2 years ago, and somebody got an email from Wells Fargo that said, dear customer, due to our recent sales activity, we believe several accounts were opened in your name. And that person clicked on that link to verify that none of those accounts were opened in their name. And as we dug deeper, of course, that person let us know that they didn't even have a Wells Fargo account. So you see these all the times, but it's some common sense. And again, if you don't understand who it is, there is nothing wrong with picking up the phone and calling SunTrust. There's nothing wrong with calling your individual who you report to down the hall and just verifying, hey, you sent me this email. Before I did this, I wanted to make sure it was from you. That 5-second phone call or that quick, touch and making sure, that double check, saves companies thousands and thousands of dollars every year. Here's another message, and all of us have seen these. Hey, did you get my previous email? This email is something that happened here to us where an individual received an email from Frank, a small company. Frank was her boss. She received this email, as you'll notice, on a Friday afternoon. She responded back. She said, no, I didn't get it. Frank's alias responded back and said, hey, I appreciate everything you're doing. I need you to transfer this wire or move this money to this account. Don't worry about it today. I know it's late on Friday. I know the banks are closed. It's after 4:00. Why don't you just do it first thing on Monday? Have a great weekend, and I will see you then. Well, as most companies work, Frank is a small business owner, so he didn't come into the office on Monday till 10:30, 11 o'clock. Well, Heather pops into his office and says, hey, Frank, I appreciate, you send me the email, had a great weekend, and don't worry, I went ahead and took care of that wire transfer for you first thing when the bank opened. Well, Frank's response was, what are you talking about? And they had to go all the way back and figure this out. By the time we got involved with it, which was only 30 minutes later, 50% of that money had already cleared. They were only able to get, and this was a smaller one, it was only $10,000. But if you think about a small business, $10,000 just pure cash going out of your business really hurts. So building up on the phishing is a lot of social engineering. So what social engineering really is it's really just a confidence trick to get people to divulge more information. It can be anything from calling somebody up and saying, hey, this is Tony. I was just doing a presentation in your conference room. I actually left my USB drive there. I can recover my information. It's still plugged into the back of your conference room computer. If you can, just give me your network ID and then your username, and I'll be able to pull it down. And if you want to hang on the phone with me when I do it. We've seen those types of things happen all the time. Other examples of social engineering is there's been several studies where an individual will walk into a building with a data provider shirt on. I'm with X and X company, and people will actually let them walk by the receptionist desk, even during this COVID pandemic. Let them walk by, they'll show them their IT closet, they'll leave them alone, they'll let them walk unobstructed through their offices. And all it is simply because they have a particular shirt on. So if you think about that, here's an interesting fact. One of the most stolen uniforms in America. And I always thought until about 3 years ago that it was going to be a police uniform or a military uniform. Actually, one of the most stolen uniforms in America is a UPS delivery driver uniform. So think about UPS. Everybody loves it when the big brown truck pulls up. You're getting packages. If you're a company, it means you're shipping stuff out. Well, if you have one of those uniforms, think about it. You can walk around somebody's house. People will put their dog away from you. You have a reason to be there. If you had one of those uniforms, you could probably walk up to somebody's house and they would hand you packages. You put them in your trunk and drive off. So that's a version of social engineering. Another thing that I've seen happen before is these big conferences that we all go to, these trade shows that used to be a powerful way to sell and promote your products, which is, they've scaled down over the last year, but people used to go to them and they would have a bank of computers there and people would check their email, they'd log into the work. Well, if you think about it, that's a public use computer. There's no real security. There's not a security guard standing by them. There's no IT. People would plug recording or thumbstroke software keystroke software into the back of those machines on a USB drive. After a whole day of people typing in, entering their passwords, checking their website, you could go and unplug that USB drive and you would have all that information that day. Also, if you think about it, I don't know if you guys go to hotels a lot, but if you ever use their business center, don't ever check any personal information. Don't enter your username and password. Use your phone, use your laptop, get on their Wi-Fi. You got to think at a hotel, even a predominant chain, the employees there when you check in or at night when you're using the business center, their role is to check people in and out of the hotel, make sure your stay is comfortable. Their role is not to be an IT security personnel. They're not going to walk behind somebody like me and look and see, oh, did he stick anything in the back of the USB? Did he download anything to this computer to record what everybody else is? Is it transmitting to him somewhere? That's not the role. But it amazes me how many times people, after they travel, get hacked. And you ask them these questions, hey, were you at a trade show recently? Did you stay at a hotel? Were you in the business center looking at confidential information at that business center? And if the answer is yes, that's usually where that comes from. So, but yeah, social engineering is just a clever manipulation of human natural tendencies. So if you think about it, when you're doing social engineering or when you're talking to somebody about social engineering, people are willing to help. You know, they train salespeople. They train us to ask the question, hey, I hope you can help me. Who is the best point of contact to make these decisions? It's the same thing. You could be in a gas station out of town and not know where you're at. And somebody usually would come up to you and they say, hey, can you tell me how to get to 4th Street? You would look at them and you will pull out your phone and, you know, I'm not from here, but I'll see what. It's human nature to try to help people, and people who use social engineering, that is what they're preying upon, is our willingness to help each other. So one of the ransomware attacks, and that's what I want to get into next, is a Jaguar hotel. So this is high-end European hotel where clientele, they make a lot more money than I ever will. They go into these hotels and in the morning they go up skiing, and then they bring them back in the afternoon. They take showers, serve them 5-course meals, etc. What the hackers did in this case is when everybody left on the bus to go skiing, they changed all the locks to the rooms. They're the magnetic strips, and demanded ransomware. So imagine if you're this hotel employee and all of a sudden you have these people come back in from a day of skiing in their ski jackets and they want to just go eat or they want to do whatever. And they're all standing in your lobby because all of them are locked out of their room. And again, think about the price in euros of this hotel and the clientele it has. And I'm sure these people are also thinking, this is how much I'm spending the night and this is what happens. They paid that ransom really quick. St. Louis Public Library System. You know, I don't know if somebody had some overdue library books, but the reason I want to highlight this is they lost 2 weeks of people being able to check out books, but more importantly, 2 weeks of people being able to return books. So think about the backlog and the lost productivity. Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital. So yeah, I'm sure you guys are thinking, oh, this is a HIPAA. This is something for, financial gain. They hacked into a hospital and said, hey, look, if you don't tell us this, we're going to release this patient information. Actually, what the hackers did was they put an email together and said, hey, you're Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital. We know everybody who has had facial reconstruction surgery, and again, it's in Hollywood, over the last year. We're going to release that to the tabloids if you don't, and say that we got it from a data hack from you if you don't pay us the ransomware. So hackers do get creative. So what is ransomware? It's what we've heard in the news lately. It's the locking software that basically demands either a financial payment or an action to unlock your computer. So the FBI has already started a division on this. That's how big this is. The number one security concern for people like me and for people in the security organization is we do not want our customers to get hit with ransomware. We want you to be productive. We want you to, call us for the right reasons. When you get hit with ransomware, the hardest thing is you have productivity losses. You have to call somebody in to do forensics. You might have to notify your customers that there might have been a breach. It gets really expensive when it's reactive. So these are some versions of ransomware from screenshots. A lot of these you'll see personal, they'll come onto your computer if you're doing something late at night, or if you're sitting there and you click on a link. Again, using family members of mine as an example, Microsoft is never going to come through your speakers. The FBI are never going to come through your speakers and say, hey, you need to call this number to unlock your computer, or you've downloaded something. And if you look at the one example, if you look at it, the FBI, if you're doing something wrong, isn't going to send you an email and say, hey, look, you owe us $50 and we'll, for a fine. They're going to show up at your door. But again, ransomware plays on activities of users. So again, if you're doing something, if you click on a wrong link, a lot of times people will go ahead and pay this to the ransomware just because of the embarrassment of it. Or, hey, I don't have time enough to deal with this. I'm doing Christmas shopping. I would like to go ahead and continue on with my day. Then there's encryption ransomware. These are more serious examples of this. These are what you're going to see in a business, where it'll give you a time frame, tell you how much Bitcoin they want, and tell you what's going to happen if you don't pay. So ransomware grew. If you look at this, and it's even greater than that now, but it went from 4 million incidences in 2015 to 638 million by 2000, so in a year. And now think about the statistic that I showed you earlier, where I think about 90% of companies have been hacked or there's been some kind of breach on the network in the last year. This is serious stuff. So why is ransomware so successful? Users might not report it, they might not pay, they might have some compliance. I just want this off my network. But also it holds for ransom your network, documents, the things that have made your business successful. A good example is we had a engineering group that had CAD drawings for VA hospitals that basically, when they were required to keep and be able to pull up those documents at any time, so that there's any addition to the hospital, if there's any changes, they could present those to the hospital. Well, once this ransomware hit, they were unable to meet that requirement. And so as a result of that, if they wouldn't have paid the ransomware, or what the owner thought the ransomware was going to be, immediately they would have lost that contract and theoretically went out of business within 72 hours. Now, they did have a good backup system. They were able to pay it and move forward. But that owner didn't sleep for about 3 days. Another reason why it's so successful is, again, if you go back to the example where when we were robbing a bank back in the 50s, I had to have a getaway driver. I had to have a gun. I had to know how to shoot the gun. I had to realize when a bank was going to have the maximum amount of income or the money on hand for me to steal. I had to get away. I had to hide the money. I had to go to somebody like Robert, who's got a ton of money, to help me launder the money, those types of things. Well, cybercrime, you can commit from your couch. You literally can sit at home, and there is no other industry where you can sit at home and basically send emails to people and just really wait for somebody to click on a link to lock up their computer. The other nice thing is about ransomware is most of the time they offer Bitcoin. It's untraceable. It'll hit one anonymizer, one proxy server, go somewhere else, and then a user can download it in a third country. It's an international currency. And again, there's no action required on my part. At some point, I will cash out my Bitcoin and walk away successful. And once it leaves, there's no real way to trace where it ended up at. Another reason why ransomware is getting more and more successful is we've all heard of software as a service. A good example is, Salesforce.com, if you guys use that, ConnectWise, some of those players. Well, ransomware as a service is becoming more and more accessible. What ransomware as a service is let's say I'm a disgruntled employee. I can reach out to somebody on the dark web and say, hey, look, I would like to, I'm not a programmer. I don't know how ransomware works, but I can guarantee that I can infiltrate this company because my last day is on Friday. I'm just going to plug in whatever you send me, this USB stick of ransomware, into their network. I want 10% of it. So you can actually negotiate out online and make ransomware a commodity, so to speak. But even more important, you can buy it almost as consignment. You can say, hey, look, if you give me the program, I will run it. And whatever we make, just give me 10%. The other nice thing is think about it. If you have access into a company, or even if you know somebody in a particular company might be victim to this, you can reach out to these malicious characters and negotiate with them. A good example is, let's say that I was in a relationship and I broke up with my significant other. If I had a copy of ransomware, what would happen if I sent to that employee's work email address, hey, here are the pictures? They would click on those. That's how people think. What can I do that will get somebody to fall into this action? So, you can purchase these in several forms. You can, pay credit card for them. You can just arrange something where, hey, whatever's in the Bitcoin account, just leave for me. So, chief information officers, that's a fairly new role that we've seen in the last 5 years. With IT security, unfortunately, we're behind. There's always people who are going to be ahead of us as far as how to disseminate viruses throughout our network. Well, the issue is as long as there's money, and if your employees are still believing that, hey, I do need to click here, and they're not thinking before they click, it's still going to be an issue. So, here's some high-level things that you can do to protect your data. One, educate your users. If that's the one thing that I can get across today, it's really that your users hold the key. If you think about ransomware, if you think about phishing, social engineering, it all requires an action on your user. I'm sure all of you have gotten those emails we call spoofed, where they, maybe the company name's misspelled wrong. Maybe it's even your name. Maybe it just comes from CFO@sharpusa.com. We've all gotten those. But as long as we don't do anything, they don't hurt anything. Just delete them. But if you have that one user, that one person who falls for that tactic, everything that we've done is for naught. So weapons grade backups. I get asked a lot of times, hey, what kind of backup do we need? And I recommend off-site, on-site, to back up your server to protect it from mechanical failures like a hard drive failure. Off-site, just to oversimplify, in case there's a fire in your building, you need to work and it's up in the cloud somewhere. And then an offline, which is due to the nature of what we do. If you guys remember when you had the old tape drives, somebody put them in the glove compartment, drove around with them, I still like that offline copy. because if the network goes down or something, you still have, and it might be older, but you still have somewhere to help restore your business from. Network vulnerability scans. We talked a little bit earlier about white hat hackers. Pay a third party to come in and take a look at your network. At Sharp, we do managed IT services. We also do security network scans. When we control somebody's network, we actually prefer for a third party to come in because it validates what we do. You wouldn't have your accountant audit your books. You bring a third party in to audit your books with that accountant's work. And if your accountant's doing everything above board and everything looks great, it validates to you why you have that individual. But also it can help you out as far as, hey, look, did you know that, these 5 users who maybe reduced in staff due to the COVID pandemic, they still have internet access, or they still have access or VPN tunnels into your network. So implement best practices. Groups like this, I love groups like this because somebody in this group, whether they admitted it or not, has been victim of a data breach. I'll put money on it. In a group like this, be vocal. Share with your peers what's happened. Share with your peers, hey, look, I talked to this IT technology company and they walked me through this process and it seems to fit. And I wanted to share it with you because you're in the same vertical market as me. Just here you go. This is what we're doing. I mean, it's interesting to me. People talk about, hey, this is what we're doing as far as PCI compliance. But nobody really shares what they're doing with IT. I mean, open it up. You guys have a great peer group here. You've got a strong foundation. That's really why you have these groups. Advanced security monitoring. So products have improved a lot. And just a standard AV package isn't enough anymore. You've got to have something that's proactively preventing not just viruses from coming into your network, but what happens if they do? Do we have something that will isolate that computer, prevent that virus from spreading, and then return it back to its normal state of operations? If anybody wants to see how vulnerable you guys are to security, write on a USB stick and throw it in the parking lot of your work. It just says 2020 employee salaries. I can't tell you how fast somebody will pick that thing up and plug it into their computer. People want to see what everybody else is making. The other thing, and hopefully a lot of times it's called MFA, but hopefully you guys are taking the steps to work with multi-factor authentication, this extra step to making sure this person is who they say they are, and your users are going to scream a little bit. It's a little bit discomforting, but make them log in twice. Make them have a second check to make sure they are. Because if somebody hacks into your network and gets one key to the kingdom, if they can't find the door, or if they don't have the right way to turn that key, that's what that prevents. It's just that extra step that's going to make you guys more successful. IT is, I don't want IT to ever be seen as this black hole you just throw money at every month. Hey, we need new laptops, your server's going down. The guy from Sharp Security is asking us for more money. No, what IT is when you're very proactive and you take these steps, IT is reasonable. It's after you get breached. It's after you have that data failure. It's after, your server crashes where everything's in a rush and it's, okay, what do we have on the shelf? What can we provide to keep our business afloat? If you take a proactive approach to all of IT, not just security, your ROI is a lot less than, oh, wow, we've had a server go down. We need to fix it immediately. So the last point I wanted to bring across to you guys is over the past year, in shapes, forms, or whatever, we've had people go home. We've seen our traditional brick and mortar building where people come in, work 8 to 5, and then leave at the end of the day. That workforce has shifted. And in a lot of cases, we've given employees who have never worked from home the ability to work from home. And I think most of us across the board were surprised at how successful it was. It worked. But we've also got to think that we gave a person a laptop, or we gave them a VPN tunnel into our work environment and never actually took the time, because of the pandemic, again, it's reactionary, to educate those users on acceptable use. We just hope they knew how to do it. We don't know if those users who've been working at home on company equipment, if their sons and daughters were using their laptop to do schoolwork. We don't know if there was some online shopping going on. They weren't behind a firewall. They were outside of our network. They weren't protected. And now all of a sudden, as we're transitioning back, whatever shape, hybrid model you're taking to go move everybody back into your brick and mortar building, all these exposed devices are now coming back into our network. Things that weren't behind our firewall, things that we couldn't check up on a daily basis, things that might not have been patched. I mean, I see that all the time where people had a VPN tunnel over the last 12 months into their company to get Microsoft patches. And just that extra step, they never did. They just, hey, look, I can get on my wireless, I can go out the internet. So we're bringing in unpatched machines back into our network. And that's what keeps me up at night. Is I've had all these machines that have been out other places that I couldn't control. And either April 1st or, someday in March, or we're going back 50%. All these things are coming back in. And as soon as I get back to the office, my users who I provided this information for is picking up that notorious little blue cable and boom, plugging it into that box. And all it takes is for one of them to have clicked on a wrong link on Facebook, one of them to accidentally mistype something into a Google search, one of them to be checking their Yahoo account from my corporate machine that I provided to them and accidentally click on a link. It just takes one of those people to shut down my entire network. And that's what keeps me up at night. So that concludes my presentation about what to expect as you're coming back to work, how to help remedy it, hopefully give you a little bit of education on what's out there, who's trying to hack into your network, as well as why people do it and what we can do to prevent it. So again, the one thing I'd like for you to take away from this is your users are your biggest vulnerability. No questions asked. I think everybody across the whole IT spectrum will do that. There's several programs out there on how to educate your employees. We do it actually at Sharp for free just because we know how expensive it can be. But if there is anything that I can help you out with Sean Coe, with Hector, who's on the call as well, shoot us an email. We'd love to help you out, answer any questions you have. And Robert, I'm going to turn it back over to you as far as if there's anything in the chat or any questions I can answer.
Oh, I'm reclaiming host. So I want to I appreciate you coming on. A couple housekeeping items since I have everybody on. We'll get into the Q&A. We'll do it for about 15 minutes after the call or after my announcements. If you want to hang on and ask your specific questions, we had a number of questions that came in the chat room, which I believe Sean was addressing, and we'll get to that. If you did miss a portion or the entire call, if you logged in a little bit late, you can just go on to YouTube a little bit later, go on to Rob Morales Insight Productions, and that'll be uploaded for you. It's on there if you want to do a screenshot. Like I said, it'll probably be up there within the next couple hours, and you'll get the full content of the show today. And for RCO Network, we have a couple events coming up in the next couple weeks. So if you guys want to join us on Facebook at RCO Network, we have Jacqueline Fay, the Fairy Matchmaker, coming to our unedited show on Thursday, April 1st. So tune in for that. She's going to be talking about what she does as far as a business. She's coming out to Scottsdale to matchmake some of our business owners who can't seem to strike it lucky with their love of their life. So she'll be talking about her business and what's going on there. We also have corporate headshots here at Workuity in Phoenix, April 7th from 4 to 6 p.m. So just go ahead and ask us, or we can DM you the address and the location information regarding corporate headshots. April 20th, today is our classroom series regarding cybersecurity. We want your ideas. So if you guys have ideas for our next class, we want to fulfill those and find a presenter for you. So on April 20th, we're going to be having our next Zoom series for you. And whatever your suggestions are, you can go in and send them to us, and we will find you and support your business however we need to. So some up-and-coming events coming up. We will turn it over to the Q&A section. There was a couple of questions that came in. You guys can ask specifically on your own what you want, but in the Q&A, there was a couple of questions I think Sean answered, but we're going to go ahead and I guess make those more formal. Anybody can kind of chime in. I believe the talk is available, but Hector Calderon is the local representative, right, Sean?
Tony? That is correct.
Yes,
yeah.
So he'll be the go-to guy for your business.
and I did put his contact information in the chat and fairly early on, but yeah, his contact information's in there. And, thank you again for allowing us the opportunity to spend some time with you and your attendees today.
Yeah, I'm having fun. There was a few questions that came up and came in mind for me. And let's see. I know we answered a couple of the questions in the chat, but let's go ahead and answer them here just as we have everybody on, and we can get it recorded too. So the first question Gabby had was, what are the chances a small business could get hacked, and how often would you recommend a change in my passwords?
So a small business will get hacked more than a bigger business. If you think about some of the people who I showed you as far as notable breaches, think about how big their IT departments are. They've got more manpower, more capital, more everything to throw at IT security, more formalized security awareness training programs for the users. And if you look at Home Depot and Target weren't actually hacked. They're smaller third-party providers that did credit card machines or were a supplier to them got hacked. And that's how the hackers were able to backdoor into those large corporations. So for me, if I'm a hacker, I actually am going to target a smaller organization just because, economies of scale, they're not going to have that IT department. And from there, I'm going to try to hack into who they're providing. Now, also, if you're a smaller business, and the hackers are fairly smart, if I hack into Home Depot, I might ask them for $1 million. And not to justify what they're doing, but hackers, when they hack into a smaller network, also understand that they're going to give you a price tag to unlock your computer system that they're going to make it painful, but they're not going to make it so painful where you're going to say that's too much. So they're going to, your price tag might be $10K. So it's interesting. But yeah, hackers target smaller businesses a lot more than they target larger businesses. And also, if you think about it, there's a lot more SMBs than there are enterprise accounts. So just, by nature, your success and talk track's going to be a little bit better in that market. I recommend changing your passwords every 60 days. I'm a little fanatical. I wish it was 30 days, but that's kind of impractical as far as business. But I require my users to change their password every 60 days. And I do, as soon as I ask them to do it, I do get those calls into the help desk and get them calling me directly, unfortunately, sometimes. Hey, I just changed my password. I can barely remember the last 8. I can't do that. So there are some there are some softwares out there. LastPass is a good one that helps your users, have that one password, but it helps them generate that. And it's a nice tool to have if you do run into those user complaints quite frequently.
Perfect. I also had a question from Hector C. Go ahead, and Hector.
Thank you for attending. Robert, nice meeting you via Zoom. I've known Gabby for quite a few years, so we go way back. That's how we got started into this. Back just to tag along on the question of a small business, I'm currently talking to a small business, 25 employees, nothing big here in Phoenix. The reason he wants to talk to us now, and Sean is aware of this, his system got compromised. So now they want to take all precautions they can, because there's I don't remember the percentage, but if you're a small business and you get hacked, you're usually out of business within the next 6 to 8 months, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely something to think about.
Well, yeah, just to throw some statistics out here, because I've got them up here on my Google. So literally, to talk about hacking in small businesses are a lot more accessible, and think of it in the senses of marketing. A lot of these hackers are buying predetermined lists, and if you've been hit once, chances are you're going to get hit again. And what they're seeing is there's about 58% of small businesses that are going to get hit that actually report it. They say that the number is larger than that because there's a percentage that isn't reporting that they're being hacked because it's not good. It's not good advertising to openly admit that you've been hacked and that you've compromised your client information. So they're actually saying that closer to 82% of all small businesses are going to or have been or currently being hacked. Because bear in mind, they're not just there to have the ransomwares and that sort of thing. They also like to utilize networks as bots to do the nefarious activities, like taking down Google and the larger entities in that sense. So you actually can become a bot and help the bad guys with their nefarious activities without even knowing it too. And we can help prevent that as well with some software tweaking.
Yeah, I did notice in the chat. I think you mentioned maybe I should learn from you guys, because everybody has their camera off. I don't know if that's an insider thing to do, to turn the camera off, and because they can identify you. I know there's like facial recognition software out there. So it's
absolutely. In the chat, I did mention, can they hack and can they take over cameras? A good way to think of that is TikTok. TikTok as an application, and I have to allow my daughter to do it because she likes to do the dances and that sort of thing. But part of their rule is they control your camera and your mic, whether the application's on or off. So they're recording everything. And think of IoT devices, the Alexas, the Googles, even some cable boxes. That's unidirectional information that they're dragging out from you, and they're constantly listening and they're constantly doing it. And I think of like the baby monitors, and you've heard those stories where they're hacking into that and scaring children. That's another point of vulnerability in small business, because you think of it this way: you try to lock down everything, but you also want to allow your receptionists and your workers maybe a little bit of reprieve when they're on breaks. I think of Facebook. The Facebook is one of the most nefarious, applications out there. In Farmville, there was so much activity and so many different scripts that were written, and what am I looking for? Not hacks, but viruses. There we go. Viruses that were just launched because of that. And it was. Let's face it, the internet is the wild, wild west. So you want to make sure you stay protected.
Is that why Facebook doesn't do games as much anymore?
Correct.
That's
correct.
Well, here's a easier to the person. And Robert, if you can share your screen with me as far as can they hack security cameras, or if I can share my screen with you.
Yeah, I'll give you the.
All right.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Here we go. You're the host.
All right. Perfect.
You're not going to launch into my Ring doorbell, are you?
No.
I don't know. Should we be scared what we find, Sean?
Yeah. So if you look, so this happened actually, and I hate when they do it. But yeah, on the 9th of March, hackers released that they had hacked into the security cameras of Tesla, several jails, and basically taken control of a ton of IP-based camera systems in the world. And even though there was nothing, Tesla came out and said, hey, there's nothing, proprietary or anything they saw. you still think about it, it's very voyeuristic. In particular, if I was running a jail or something like that, I don't want necessarily video of that jail so people can see where I move my inmates around. But yeah, it's not that hard if I can get on somebody's network to look at their camera systems. One of the things that people are constantly worried about, and I don't want to create too much fear, is my son has an Xbox. He has a camera on it. I don't know why anybody want to see my living room again. I'm from South Carolina, but somebody can turn on that camera. And he can't give me a good reason, and I can't tell him a good reason why he needs to have the camera plugged into the Xbox. There is no reason for me to have to walk in my living room. And again, I err on the side of overly cautious. I'm that technology guy who's afraid of technology. But I can hit the power button on my TV. I don't need my TV to recognize that it's me. I don't want my camera, I don't want that vulnerability or that window open for somebody to come in. So it's easier for me just to unplug the camera from the Xbox. So, one of the other questions here is, how often should a person have to have a security tune-up? Kind of like, and again, Jerry, I appreciate that, recognizing that, the guy from South Carolina probably knows more about cars than college. So, no, that's a good question.
It is.
Once a year, I recommend having a tune-up to make sure to have somebody audit your security policies. You can do it more often, but I'll be honest with you, it's how much do you want to spend per year based on just auditing, making changes. The other thing that a lot of people have in not only their insurance policies for cyber liability insurance, but some other requirements, is that one of these needs to be done at least every 2 years. A good rule of thumb is every 12 months, just because there's going to be changes on your network. Hopefully your business is growing. You might have some new policies, some new equipment that you bought, something to make your business grow. But that once a year mark is pretty good. And again, a lot of companies do it. There's tools out there online for free that we can help. The biggest thing is, if you want to run one of those free tools out online, it's, have somebody who understands IT translate that data for you. Things that I always look for is, hey, when are there any machines on my network that haven't checked in 90 days? Are those valid employees? When's the last time I did my password changes? And is there anything, hey, my server or one of my machines was at 50% utilization last time I did this. Now it's at 90%. What's added to this? What's caused any of these drastic move add and changes?
Tony, it's ironic that you mentioned that and bring up that question right now, because one of the things that Hector we were going to talk about here before we signed off, any of the attendees here in Phoenix with small businesses that want to have an audit done, we're willing to provide that because they attended this and they're part of this organization. We're willing to do the assessment process for them at no cost. If they're willing to allow us to present the findings of the reports to them, we'll be willing to go ahead and run the analysis, and all they have to do is reach out to Hector and we can get something scheduled to do that. Now that the state is opening up, we're starting to go out and do these. We were actually doing some of these virtually, but we weren't getting all the information we needed. And now that we're opening back up in Arizona, we're actually physically going to locations, and we are adhering to a proper PPE and whatever requirements you may have at your office. But we can actually give you an 8 to 10 page executive summary report of the status of your network, and then our recommendations. What we do is we show you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So if you have a pristine account, or we'll tell you if your network is pristine, we're going to tell you. If you have problems, we're going to tell you, and we'll give you suggestions on how to manage that properly. If anybody's interested, just feel free to reach out to Hector. He just popped up his chat there. or his email in the chat again.
Got his email and his phone number.
Yeah.
So as we do wrap up, we're in the last 3 minutes. Ramona had one quick question we can answer before we conclude today. The cameras I've seen have always thought about. It's scary to me when looking at my address on Google. I can see my car parked there at times. Can hackers break into these? I believe that's public, right? That pretty much anybody that has a Google.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately,
Are you going to talk about Elon Musk's new satellites out there and what he's going to be able to?
No, I'm not going to.
I don't want to scare you, Hector. And
More to come, I guess.
So if you think about what Google did and the original intent of it and everything it was for, it is kind of cool that I can get into my car and I can put in an address and the car will tell me how to get there. It's pretty cool that, when I go to realtor.com, if I'm looking for a new house, I can type that in and I can see what that house looks like from an aerial view. I can see, hey, this is great. Hey, I want to go rent a cabin on the, where am I going to? So that's kind of cool. It's also kind of cool. My son's in the science. I like to think I'm in science. I can't keep up. I love the Google Earth images. I love that I can get in a theoretical unmanned car and see exactly step by step where I'm going. Unfortunately, and I hate to say it this way, people with malicious intent abuse that system. It's like if you think about email, if you think about the justification of email, I want to be able to send somebody a message that will be recorded, they can have forever in their records, that they'll get almost instantaneously, and we'll move forward. It'll make business faster. Now, if you ask a lot of company owners, a lot of them are, man, I wish we just picked up the phone again. All these email, these spam things. I get more junk email than I get business email. Again, it's the malicious intent. I mean, it's that whole 90% of the world's good and that 10% that's bad, ruins it for everybody. That's the same way, Google never went out with the intent. I don't work for Google, obviously. But I don't think they ever went out with, hey, we want to take pictures of people's cars and then we want to have these malicious characters be able to look and see if they could see into people's windows. It's kind of like the whole drone thing. And I hate to say, whenever I think drones are cool. I like looking at them. But man, whenever I see one fly over me, I always get subconscious. Are they recording me? Why do they want to see? Why is there a camera on that drone? It's the same aspect. I mean, you can't give me in my purview of the world, you can't give me a good reason why a drone needs to have a camera on it for a person. I understand for the Army, military, and those agencies. You can't tell me why a person in my back or in my neighborhood needs a camera on a drone. But if you ask one of those people, oh, I want to record this, I'm looking for bird, I don't know what they're doing. But yeah, I get real self-conscious when those things fly around my window. Yeah. I don't know how to solve the Google map thing unless
I do know of a client. So one of my real estate clients, he did show me just before we listed his house that he was able to block the image from Google. So if you did an address search, you would just see a blur there. And I do know there's an ability to do that. I don't know how he did it. I just found it was pretty interesting that he was able to do that. So to address Ramona's question, can you block some of that information? You absolutely can. I think Google, not too recently, but fairly recently, basically, if you email them or contact them in whatever way I don't know how you do it, they can block certain information, certain images, and certain things that are copyrighted or things that you've published or put out there. But I don't know how they filter all that out. But I know there's an ability there.
Yeah, and that is, most reputable companies will give you that ability. I mean, but then some of it's also, user error, things like that. Like, people ask me all the time about Facebook, hey, I'm not on Facebook personally, and it's more of a personal choice than a security choice. Facebook, in its grand scheme of things, is a good tool. It keeps the world small. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a grandparent able to see pictures of their grandkids. I mean, if you think about what most people use it for. But then you have my cousin who tells everybody she's going on vacation. She's got pictures of her living room. She's got her address on there. Now, the only saving grace is she has nothing in her house anybody would want to steal. So that's probably saving her. But you look at people like that, and a lot of times you look at it and say, that's not really on Facebook. That's not really on Google. That's kind of user error. So we're back to this whole talk where I kind of can understand the cyber criminal. We've almost made it too easy.
Yeah. Well, we'll end it there. I appreciate your time, Tony. I'm going to do one last housekeeping thing before
Yes,
we
sir.
wrap up, Senor. So if you want to market your business here on Our CEO Network, go ahead and contact us at info@ourconetwork.com or one of our sites. So Facebook, just look us up at Our CEO Network. Also go to Instagram and LinkedIn and contact us there. But again, for your social media management support, and we can highlight you as a business on one of these calls like we did today. So I want to appreciate that. And I did want to, I don't know if this is legit or legal or if I should, but I do have a picture of Tony here. If Tony Roessler from Sharp Security Systems, he can, he's not going to be your point of contact. It'll be Hector. You can find Hector's information in the chat box. I will also post it, like I said, on YouTube to in the comment section in order to contact Hector for those updates and information regarding that. But I do appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for attending. This is Robert Morales, our CEO Network. We're going to be signing off for today. And again, if you have those questions, go ahead and contact us at info@ourconetwork.com. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate all the information, sir. And we'll catch you guys next time.